Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Excellent. Great job, everybody. All right. Let's not start talking now, okay? Hey, I said let's not start talking. Excellent. Good job not talking. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NAIOP Southern Nevada February Breakfast Program. I am Reed Gottesman, and I want to thank each and every one of you in attendance, both on Zoom and in person, for allowing me the privilege of serving as your chapter president this calendar year. We're going to go right into it as far as the President's Circle sponsors. And let's take a moment and take a look at our platinum sponsors. And they should be on the board. We're going to start with Cox Business. Cox has supported our chapter for 19 years. And our other platinum sponsor is Schnitzer Properties. They've also stepped up to the ranks of platinum. And they have supported NAIOP Southern Nevada since the turn of the century in 2000. Our gold sponsors, I can't see the screen, but I assume it's on there. We want to show our gratitude to them. Kimley Horn and Associates, Spotlight 2022 Engineering Firm of the Year. People in the back online for getting food. That doesn't mean you can talk. All right, let's keep it down. Thank you. Majestic Realty Company, Rod Martin over there. He is a Spotlight Lifetime Achievement Award recipient and also a heck of a good guy, right, Rod? Nevada General Construction, thank you, Thomas and Micah, for being so involved. Panattoni Development Company, Spotlight 2022 Development Firm of the Year. Prologis, led in this market by their Vice President and Market Officer, Miss Lisa Brady. And Southern Nevada Water Authority, who I want to once again commend the difficult work they've been doing to safeguard the future of our community. We'll move on to the other President's Circle sponsors. Check out the screen as we recognize our silver sponsors. Hey, Zach, why don't you help us keep it quiet back there? Thank you. Yes. Who's next? All right. Our bronze sponsors. And finally, our copper level President's Circle sponsors. All right. If you're not yet a President's Circle sponsor, just do it. You'll get so much more out of it than you think. Take action, make it happen. Speak to Jonna, speak to me, speak to Katrina, or speak to Lisa Brady. And Lisa Brady, when she's not leading Prologis' Southern Nevada operations, is our sponsorship chair. Lots of options on who to speak to, but let's make it happen. All right, we are going to move into committee announcements. So why don't we have all of the committee chairs line up? So the volunteers of our committees are what makes this organization so special. So let's take a moment to hear what they have going on. We're going to start with community service.
Yes.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan McInerney, and I'm here on behalf of the Community Service Committee. I wanted to remind everyone of the upcoming Make-A-Wish fundraiser and walk. The walk is going to be on April 29th at Town Square, and we will be fundraising leading up to that event. Our committee has set a goal of raising $20,000 this year so that we can grant one large wish. We're actually throwing out a fun challenge during the breakfast. So if you guys can scan the QR code that's on your table, the Community Service Committee will be personally matching up to $500 in donations. So please consider donating, and we can't wait to see you at the walk. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Super excited to announce our next education event. We also have a new location. So April 28th, we're going to be having an event talking about behind the scenes of F1 Super Bowl and also what it takes to bring in thousands of people at our Harry Reid Airport. The event will be at Glavar on 215 and Rainbow. So again, hope to see everybody there. Members only event. Looking forward to it.
Good morning. I'm Guy Gugino from Union Bank. I'm here for the 31st annual NAIOP golf tournament being held on May 4th at Paiute Golf Course. We do have a couple sponsorships left. There are a couple alcohol holes and a couple standard holes. The golf ball sleeve is available, but we need it committed by tomorrow to get the printing done on it. We're also always looking for raffle prizes, and we'll be sending out emails asking for those. Raffle prizes, we ask that they're in at least a $100 denomination or more than $100. Raffle prize donors do not have to be members or member firms. So if you have clients who want to promote themselves and be part of our activity, we're sold out. We have 216 golfers, about 40 or 50 sponsors. There's a lot of activity and you'll get a lot of visualization. And as always, if you're interested and you're not golfing but you want to be out there, we are looking for volunteers. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Alex Malone with Compass Development here to celebrate the Spotlight Awards with you next Saturday, March 25th at Red Rock. The attire is cocktail, and if you're looking to dress to theme, I'd suggest blues, greens, anything that makes you think of the beach. I'd love to see some all-white looks. Anyone playing with textures like lace, prints like paisley or polka dot stripes, anything like that. I know we've had some questions about that, so there's a ton of things to do. If you have any questions, please let us know, and we hope to see you next Saturday.
I could help anyone with their Hamptons gear.
Hello, everyone. I'm Micah with Nevada General Construction, here with the Membership Committee and the Social Subcommittee. One of my favorite events of the year is coming up, the Aviators Game with NAIOP. It is a members and non-members event this year. We're doing it on Wednesday, May 31st. It is a Wednesday because we're able to buy out the entire third deck, so I hope to see everyone in the room there. There are sponsorship opportunities for that event, $500 and $1,000 levels. If you have questions about that, come see me personally. We'll have a couple of smaller events over the summer. Keep an eye out for that. And then our bowling tournament is August the 3rd. We're looking to sell that one out again as well, and there'll be sponsorship opportunities that benefit the Community Service Committee as well. Reed.
Micah, that was an excellent announcement. Thank you. Yeah. And thank you to our committee chairs. These guys really make this organization go. All right, new members. This is when we take a moment and recognize our new members. And I said this last month, but I'm going to repeat myself on that. Remember the first time you walked into this big room with all these people? It's kind of intimidating, right? So take a second, be cool, and approach these new members. Make them feel welcome. Do we have any new members? They want to stand up? Really? All right, membership committee. Can you guys work a little harder? All right, as far as membership, we are doing well. 673 members strong, but we need to keep pushing. We never get tired of saying that we are a top 10 chapter nationally. Owen Sherwood is our membership chairperson, and he'll get us some new members next month. And if anyone would like to find out about membership, there are numerous ways, but for those here today, do not hesitate to speak with Owen, because he is a really good guy. My phone's buzzing. All right. So here's where we take a moment to recognize our 2023 breakfast meeting sponsors. Everyone in the industry knows that third Thursday of each month, NAIOP breakfast at the Orleans is the place to be. And these 9 companies are critical to our success, and I think that today proves that third Thursday is the place to be right here. Okay, Affordable Concepts, Carpenter Sellers Delgado Architects, Cox Business, Dermody Properties, Gensler, Martin Harris Construction, NV Energy, Schnitzer Properties, Southern Nevada Water Authority, and SR Construction. All right, thank you to our breakfast sponsors. All right, today's breakfast sponsor is Schnitzer Properties. Schnitzer Properties has been a member of the chapter since 2000. They are a private, family-owned company with properties located in key metropolitan areas throughout the West. Schnitzer currently has an 11 million square foot commercial real estate portfolio in Southern Nevada with a pretty healthy development pipeline behind that. It's a pretty great company and very supportive of this organization, but please please don't take that from me. I would like to welcome Amanda McCauley. Amanda is a VP of Leasing and Operations of Schnitzer Properties, Southern Nevada. She's also a member of NAIOP's exciting new program, Developing Organizational Leadership Institute, known as DOLLY. This is a great group and an exciting new program, so keep an eye out for NAIOP's DOLLY program. See that cross-promotion there? Back to Amanda and today's breakfast sponsor, Schnitzer Properties. Where is Amanda? Why don't you step up? There she is.
Hi, good morning. Happy to be here. I want to thank NAIOP for the opportunity to be this month's breakfast sponsor. Reed already mentioned some highlights from Schnitzer Properties, but I wanted to highlight how our involvement in NAIOP has been with their commitment to our industry. We have about 60 members, employees locally, and many of those are members here in this room and on committees. We've had members of our, sorry, a little bit. It's my first time up here, so anyway. We have had employees in every DLI class since its inception, and as Reed mentioned, I am one of the first members of the Developing Organizational Leadership Institute. So I think it goes to show how important we find this organization. And with that, I will turn it over and let the program begin.
Love it when Amanda shows the human side. That was awesome. All right. This year, each month at our breakfast program, we're going to recognize the contributions that an individual NAIOP member has made or is currently making to the chapter. In January, we honored Sean Donosky, DC Building Group. In February, we honored Jennifer Turchin of the Coda Group. This month, we're going to recognize someone we all know and love, someone with a really big personality. Please hold your applause for a moment. Today, we will recognize Jennifer Levine, broker Realcomm Advisors. Oh, no. Jennifer joined in August of 2005, so she's been a member for a really long time. She was a member of the Alpha class of DLI 2009. She's had 2 stints on the board of directors, 2014 through 2019 and 2021-2022. Spent 8 years on the education committee, DLI committee for the past 9 years, and has spent 7 years on the bus tour committee, and I have to say she's been instrumental in turning the bus tour into the must-attend event that it is today. Jennifer has moderated several breakfasts, including a broker panel and a fireside chat with Frank Martin and Tom Schumann. Jennifer has won many awards, including Associate Member of the Year, NAIOP Corporate Volunteer of the Year, and she is a winner of the prestigious Ellie Shattuck Award. As far as I know, there's only one thing that Jennifer has not achieved in NAIOP, and unfortunately for her, this is an achievement that will be forever out of her reach. Jennifer was not part of the winning team of her NAIOP DLI class. However, she quite possibly made up for that devastating loss when she found her husband, Mike Showett, and she found him right here at NAIOP. And of course, Mike could not be here today because there's too much snow in Tahoe. So priorities are priorities and possibly the key to a successful marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our good friend, Jennifer Levine. All right, time to get to why we're all here today. Let's segue into the program. As everybody knows, Dan Tutlin will lead our Q&A session at the end of the program. There's paper and pens on each table. Write down your questions, and our committee members will retrieve them from each table. For those participating virtually, the Zoom Q&A will be monitored, and we look forward to your questions. The Q&A will start at 9 o'clock, and today's program concludes at 9:15. So let's get to the main event. and I think we should have an incredibly informative program today. Our moderator is Mariana Honeycutt. I would say that Mariana is an up-and-coming star within our organization, but that would be underselling it. Mariana has arrived as a leader within our organization. She is a commercial real estate development consultant, licensed civil engineer and practice builder with Kimley Horn. She has received recognitions at both the national and local stage. She was named a 2022 Engineering News Record Southwest Top Young Professional. Mariana is a National NAIOP Forum member and was recently accepted into the NAIOP National Research Foundation Visionaries Program. That's right, everyone. Our moderator today is a visionary. She is also a board member, serves on our programs committee, is the DLI committee board liaison, and is a graduate of our 2020 DLI program. Mariana, the stage is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I know this week is spring break, and many of you have kids that are out of school right now. So I appreciate you for taking the time to be here this morning, and I really do hope you get something out of this program, which personally I think is really incredible. We have an amazing panel here today. So with that, it's pretty special for me to be up here to facilitate this discussion on the hot topic of land. Many of you recall in recent years, there's been lots of discussions and past programs that are focused on land, specifically how we are very limited and land constrained. And as many of you know, approximately 70% of the state of Nevada is publicly owned and maintained by the Bureau of Land Management. And Las Vegas in particular, we've had tremendous growth, impressive growth, but we're really pushing the limits and the outskirts of our developable area. The infill areas that are left, as many of you know, they have a lot of hair on it, right? Not a lot of utility service, off-site infrastructure really isn't there. And on many of these, there's a lot of underground conditions that have to be considered, such as poor soils, faults and fissures, or other environmental factors. So there is a lot of hair on these things, and I know that. As an engineer, we're one of the first ones looped in on a lot of these projects. And increasingly, over the years, it seems I'm having to be the deliverer of bad news, or relaying realities that owners and developers don't particularly want to hear. But you know, today I want to focus on some positives, some really, really cool initiatives that are happening right now. And I hope by the end of the program, many of you will feel inspired to consider new ways of thinking outside the box, new approaches in your own practice that will really lead to the continued growth and sustainable development of our own community. So with that, I'm going to highlight our incredible panelists, a few of the pioneers in our market who are taking the leap, who are getting creative, and who are really making things happen. So I'm going to start by introducing them one by one. We'll start with Keith. As Executive Vice President, Keith Earnest oversees the Southwest Regional Office of VanTrust Real Estate, a national full-service real estate development firm. Keith leads all phases of the real estate development processes in Southern Nevada, Arizona, California, and Colorado. Winning Arizona NAIOP's Industrial Developer of the Year, Keith is responsible for determining project feasibility, market analysis, site acquisition, entitlements, design and construction oversight, as well as sales and leasing opportunities. Keith currently serves on the NAIOP National Board, and as Executive Vice President, he has led the completion of 5.7 million square feet of product in Southern Nevada. Keith, come on up. All right, next up, we have Cory Hunt. Cory is a partner and chief strategy officer of Nevada-based Tolls Development. He has extensive experience in developing partnerships, navigating the entitlement process, and analyzing tax and fiscal programs. A former economic development official and senior policy advisor under then Nevada Governor Sandoval, Cory is a tremendous expert in understanding how economics, policy, politics, and geography combine to influence site selection and the development process. Cory, come join us, please. Lastly, we have Doug Roberts. Doug is currently a Panattoni development partner for the state of Nevada and Utah. As an equity partner, he is responsible for all aspects of the development of office, industrial, and retail projects. Doug brings over 33 years of knowledge and experience to Panattoni. His expertise is in overseeing development managers during preliminary and ongoing stages of the budget and throughout the construction process. Welcome, Doug. All right, one moment. I'm trying to get to the slides we need here. Okay, here's our first slide. So, our topic is all about land, right? We're going to focus the discussion today on 3 areas of the Southern Nevada market. Apex, up there to the north, El Dorado Valley, and Jean. Not quite sure why the text is looking a little funky there, but so anyway, what I'd like to do is spend the first, and Jonna, I don't know if this is, let's jump to the next slide. Jonna will jump over to the next one. I'd like to spend the first few minutes to go through each of these submarkets. Let's start with Apex. Keith, can you start by sharing some highlights of your Vantage North development in Apex?
Sure. So Apex is a park that is basically around 28,000 acres. Sorry about that, 28,000 square feet. Boy, wouldn't that be interesting? Not a whole lot. So 28,000 acres, and they say on the internet, because I looked it up, that about 7,000 of it is developable. Well, heck, we just took the side of a mountain out, and if that's considered developable, then as Mariana discussed, the infrastructure has been challenging to get up there. But through the foresight of the city of North Las Vegas, the water line that they put up from the Armory up to the Apex Park really kind of set the stage finally for the park. And before we weren't really focused in that area just because the infrastructure was too much of a challenge. Today, with the water, now there's sewer, you start to see a lot more development up there because of the investment by the city of North Las Vegas to just start with the water. So, you know, I think things needed to fill in around the Speedway, obviously before Apex opened up, so that now that most of the land around Speedway has been developed, that kind of opened everything up for Apex. So really from the northern part of Southern Nevada, that's the next stop. So we've always been invested heavily in the Apex Park, or in North Las Vegas, because of the labor. The labor there is so strong, and we wanted to continue our momentum in that market, and this was kind of the next natural step for us to take. So we bought back about a year and a half ago, well shoot, almost 2 years ago. We closed April 1st of 21 on 350 acres. That was basically, like I mentioned, on the side of a mountain. We spent the last 2 years over the entitling and improving that land so that we could start, and we kicked off our first 2 buildings, a 450,000 square footer and a 600,000 square footer back in November. But it took us about 16 months between BLM permits and infrastructure extensions to just get those buildings going. So we have the ability to do about 4.5 million square feet there, and are excited because we're finally getting, if you drive up there today, finally getting to see the fruits of the labor of 16 months worth of work of getting that site prepped for development.
All right, jumping down to the southern part of the valley, Gene, Cory, do you want to share a little bit more on the tolls activities down there?
Yeah, what were we thinking? I asked myself a lot. So thank you for having me here today. Really appreciate it. It's great, an honor to be on a panel with Doug and Keith. I feel a bit like a hot dog at a steakhouse, so I have the least amount of hair too, so I'm kind of 0 for 3 here. Anyhow, Gene, Nevada, what were we thinking? Our company, Tolls Development, we're headquartered in Reno, Nevada. Our CEO, Par Tolls, was with Trammell Crow for a long time and developed here in Southern Nevada with Michael Newman and others. One of our institutional partners brought us down to Las Vegas and asked us to look at a project for them, and so we were looking for some other opportunities. I'd always thought that a industrial park on the south end of Las Vegas would be something that would be really interesting and compelling from a location standpoint, and so we'll get into that a little bit more. But we ended up buying Gene, Nevada, population 0. It's 140 acres is what we purchased from Terrible Herbst, and then we have another 60 acres in contract that will close on later this year, and we'll build about 3 million square feet there. We did buy a 811-room hotel casino as well, where we filmed some movies with Netflix and some other folks, and now Vandals are taking it over. So with that came a lot of infrastructure. So basically what we're doing is it's pretty simple. A lot of folks have asked, when's the water line going to get down there and how are you going to do this all? But we bought kind of all of the infrastructure that's necessary, and we're taking the infrastructure that served the 811-room hotel casino and the former Nevada Landing and taking that infrastructure and turning it into industrial. So we bought a wastewater treatment plant, which I never thought that we'd do, but now I get to be a wastewater treatment operator too. And then it also has the water and power tied up with it as well. So that's the high-level overview of Gene, and happy to get into it more as the program goes on.
Great. Thanks, Cory. And jumping over to El Dorado Valley, Doug, I know you have a lot of familiarity with this area. Can you share with the audience a bit more on how this area that's shown highlighted came to fruition? And fairly recently, it's been annexed.
Yeah, well, first of all, we're not having this conversation, just so we're clear on that. I don't want John Marciano calling me, yelling at me, so I'm just going to be really high level, forgive me. But this really is a natural transition from West Henderson and the lack of land in Henderson proper. As many of you know, we kind of zigged when everybody else was zagging to some degree because I was trying to get my ass kicked by Keith up in North Las Vegas and figured I'll go south. And I went to the West Henderson area where it's basically where Raiders Stadium is now, or the headquarters. That was our first project. We built that building that Kroger went into eventually. Frankie scared the crap out of me because I thought it was genius, and it took me months, and I go, oh my God, what did I do wrong here? But eventually it worked out because people started discovering the area, and I liked the part. It was in south part of the valley, quick LA access. But West Henderson master plan doesn't allow more industrial. Trust me, I tried, and they, no thanks. Even with tenants in tow, it didn't matter. So we were kind of forced to reconsider some options. Henderson, for good, better, and different, they wanted to, kind of keep industrial in one area, and as far as growth goes, and natural was El Dorado Valley. And OMP, to their credit, they went ahead and bought land down there. I don't know, Dan, are they started construction yet? Are they doing mass grading, but I'm not sure if they, yeah. So they're the first ones near the railroad pass. And that casino actually does pretty well. In my early days in the mid-90s, I used to stay there because I was cheap. And before I was a vegetarian, I used to eat steak that had the jockey mark still on it, if you know what I'm saying. It was not a good place to go. But take you a while to figure that one out. But I eventually, it was turned around, and it's a nice casino. There's a truck stop there that does extremely well, and then that gentleman bought more land across the street where OMP is. So what Henderson asked us to do, and thanks a lot to Dave Brown. I don't know if Dave is here somewhere.
I think he's on spring break vacation.
Yeah. I'm out of that realm now. But Dave and his expertise with Weston's company have been tremendous in kind of corralling the whole process because of their experience in Apex, and headed up it's really a public-private partnership with the city of Henderson. And I think to their credit, honestly, it's, I think people are fatigued with industrial. God knows why. I mean, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, build buildings like this, but people are sick of it. I mean, you want your stuff by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but they don't want warehouses next door. So we're kind of being forced into different areas of town, and as you talked about in the beginning, the BLM ownership of the state and the amount of land that's being basically, available for development is low. But I think everybody asks the same question when you fly in. There's so much land. Oh my God, I've been doing that for 25 years. And every broker here goes, well, that can't be developed. That can be whatever. So it's a pioneer. It is interesting. We're all from out of town because nobody here is dumb enough to do this. But I think maybe I'm missing something. But I can't go into much more detail than that. But that's kind of the high level.
I appreciate it. This next question that I have for our panelists really just kind of jumps in at a high level. When I learned, of these developments and kind of the early stages, like many of you, I probably thought, how and why, Mm-hmm. So to the panelists, what was your vision in selecting these properties? Why did you pursue these areas? Do you want to start, Keith?
Sure. It's funny because I've thought about this quite a bit, and the inspiration I actually got was Doug's so nice. He says, hey, Keith, got me in Las Vegas, but Doug, dominates up in Reno, and so we've tried to penetrate that market, but, because of Doug and some of the other folks up there, we just haven't been able to, but we tried. And we had a parcel of land that we were looking at that was on the side of a mountain, and I looked at it and I just said, man, there's just too much that needs to happen from an earthwork perspective. And I looked and just said, it just isn't for us. So 6 months later, we looked and I talked to the broker and I just said, okay, who's doing that? Well, Doug Roberts is, and he's, taking down the mountain, and he's doing what he needs to do to get, I can't remember, Doug, how big that park is, but 5 or 6 buildings in the North Valley where nobody saw the vision. So that kind of inspired us because Mason Harvey had been toting this parcel around Las Vegas for a long, long time, right? And Speedway needed to fill in a little bit. So we, as we started to lose position and market share because we were kind of done with everything that we had purchased, we actually sat down with Mason Harvey and I said, gosh, if Doug Roberts can do it in Reno, and that's a true story, by the way. So to your credit, you got us back in business down here because we looked at it and we just said, hey, there's a lot of infrastructure, but with our ownership and the capital structure that we've got with Mr. VanTrust, we've got the ability to take those kinds of risks. And that's what it takes because the infrastructure there, up at Vantage, arguably could come in twice as much as the land cost us. So you really got to look at it from an improved land perspective and see that you can still be competitive in the market. Now, fortunately, in Southern Nevada, rates have just gone crazy, even more so than my hometown of Phoenix. And so we're able to underwrite successfully, even when you have those significant infrastructure challenges and costs. So when you put that all together, you say, okay, hey, how many people out there will have the ability to develop 300 acres of industrial land in that Speedway area? And you really you'd have to go all the way up to Apex. And Apex still hadn't proved out yet. So we took that opportunity and just said, heck, let's roll the dice. We've got the capital. We've got the ability to do it. When we started with Northgate back in 2015, we put $15 million worth of infrastructure into the land before we even turned a shovel to build the first building. So with that mentality, you can, and that capital, you can go ahead and take those risks. Because in this market, when you've got 1% vacancy, rising lease rates, I don't want to call it a no-brainer because there's always risk, but it's a pretty good bet to continue in Southern Nevada when it's so land constrained.
That's great. Cory, how about Gene? That's pretty unique.
Sure. So I think as we were looking at the Las Vegas market, we obviously love the market and wanted to be in business down here. We took some of our experience in the north. There's a place called the Dorado Industrial Center. It's where the Tesla Gigafactory is, and we built a couple million square feet out there. And so that's 30 minutes from Reno, downtown Reno, along a river corridor, 2-lane road that gets shut down every day in the winter. And so with people there's 25,000 people that work out there. And so we kind of saw that Gene, I think everyone thought it was too far out of town, but with our experience, we know that people are willing to drive. So we looked at the average drive times in Las Vegas is about 25 minutes. You drive from basically Harry Reid on the 15 south, 25 minutes if you've got a little bit of a heavy foot, and you can be in Gene. So we were confident there. We looked at the workforce, we looked at housing, and said, hey, Gene could be a good opportunity for us. And then what we really liked is that you could do a one-day turn to the Port of Long Beach. So the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, requires that cab time, that a truck driver can only be driving for 11 hours of a 14-hour shift. And so those individuals can take a load from the Port of Long Beach to Gene and back in one day without having to stay overnight. So it kind of sets us up to be a little competitive with the Inland Empire and the Southern California markets, where we're hearing deals in big box are starting with 2s right now, which is crazy. So we like that, and then we also like that it's kind of in the path of progress. So the Southern Nevada Lands Bill, when that eventually gets passed, was scheduled to add 38,000 acres between Henderson and Gene, basically ending at Gene, on the east side of the 15 there. And then you add in the SNSA, which will come about, and we're kind of right in the middle. And so it's a bit of a long-term play, but trying to skate to where the puck is going to be. And we also liked that we had some infrastructure that we could turn on pretty quickly, so that we wouldn't have to wait for water lines and carve the sides out of mountains and things like that. But
Makes
so
sense.
that's why that's our vision for Gene. So now we've got to see it through.
Doug, anything to add for the El Dorado Valley area?
Well, really, it was at the behest of a client, frankly. I mean, I looked at the area, had some interest because of the obvious there's lack of other space to develop, and always had a really nice relationship with the city of Henderson. So, but it was their behest for me to go down there and put land under contract, and then there's excess land for us to develop. So it was more of a, yeah, this makes sense after looking at it for a while. But I think what Keith was talking about, like in Reno, where the whole thing is cut to fill, which, again, your neighbors aren't real big fans of that because in that particular park he was talking about, we did phase 1 across the street, and phase 2, the site I think he was talking about. It's 4 million feet at final completion. We moved about 1.6 million cubic yards of dirt. So you have to tier everything, and your coverage goes down to 35% when you want to get 45. So your price per pound under your building goes up because of that. But you just have to take extraordinary measures these days. The infill sites, as the introduction talked about, they're either non-existent, they got too much hair on them. I do work for a very, very large e-commerce company. You can guess who it is. I'm the national guy for them across North America. I've done some weird stuff in weird areas where, like, oh my God, what are we doing? Canton, Ohio, I just did that last year, finished it up in fall. It was a 1 million square foot deal on a golf course, 100-year-old golf course. And there was a wedding venue on it, and a bunch of dudes were working on the project, and we go, oh, I forgot to tell the brides that we're going to tear their wedding venue down. You know what? They cared about that. So you have to do a little bit, be more creative when you're going into different areas. In Vegas, there's nothing different. I mean, you have things you have to do to get it done, and because the demand is so high, you're willing to do it. And also, I think, I welcome the audience input, but the flattening of rates in the valley has been something that's pretty substantial. When I first got here in late 90s, if for easy math, $1 by the resort corridor, 60 cents in North Las Vegas, 85 cents in Southwest, and 75 cents in Henderson. I mean, in rough math, if you can understand what I'm saying. Now it's like everything's flat. So if you're building El Dorado Valley, up in Apex and Gene, it's not going to be the delta that we saw before. There will be, of course, because of drive time and employee rates, all that kind of stuff, especially if the market softens. So that's been an interesting dynamic where you're able to build these outlying areas, and your returns are still okay. They're not. You don't have to suffer the ones used. If you're not next to the resort corridor, you're not going to get the premium. Not like it used to be, anyway.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Doug. So I know land prices historically have been a driver for development and a big driver for development in the areas, although land prices are increasing now. So what other factors have been major drivers for these areas? And before kind of jumping in to answer that question, I guess I want to direct this more for Keith and Doug right now, because the Apex and El Dorado Valley sites reside in these master plan areas. What are some of the unique benefits being part of the master plan? I'm thinking timing, coordination, agreements, any kind of contributions. Can you touch on that?
Good.
Sure. I think the first thing, and Doug mentioned Wes Adams and Dave Brown, they're also the master declarant up at Apex, so they've done a ton of work. I think the biggest advantage that we've seen in being part of that association is the kind of the collaboration to move things through the BLM, because that's not the easiest, most expeditious process, and is usually the thing that is the mission critical thing from a time perspective on our development. So it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, I guess, and when you say, hey, you're with the Apex group, you know, Apex has hired individuals to go ahead and try and process through the BLM. That's their only job. So we can't afford to hire somebody just to bug the BLM, but our association certainly can. So that's been a benefit. It's also good from a design perspective and guidelines and those types of things. You're not, there's harmony amongst the uses. So I think that's really important. So you don't really have conflicting uses. So you always dread the HOA, and we've moved into a HOA in Phoenix a couple years ago. It's like a fear of the HOA. But in this circumstance, it's good because it's everybody's kind of pushing towards a common goal, and everybody's driving towards infrastructure. And if you're trying to compete with everybody and do it on your own, it's just not as productive, not as fast. So we found that to be kind of a nice benefit of being part of that group.
Excellent. Doug, how about you? How's your experience been working in conjunction with the master plan?
Yeah, similar experience. I would say I'd like to see if any developer in this town has ever gotten reimbursed for infrastructure they put in the ground. Rod? Ever? There's a formula they use. I was on Sunset. I think, Chris, wasn't it Jones and Sunset? We built a project there, and then we did the one for Shuffle. Now it's Bally, now it's UFC. You have a pro rata share of reimbursement for your water line, right? It's pure BS. I've never, ever, ever gotten reimbursed. I put the pipe in the ground, I did this, I did that, cost me all this money. Oh yeah, well you'll get paid back later. Right. So in this case, because it's a master plan and you have the infrastructure being planned out and everybody has a pro rata share, the fear of the unknown at least gets decreased. Because that's spent money that you'll never going to get back in a scenario like infill sites, because you know you're never going to get it back. And Carl Panattoni, he has like 10 Carlisms. One of them is the best guesser is the best developer. And if you make the right guesses, you're going to be the right, you'll build the right project. So if you can eliminate your guesses, then that's going to be a fruitful thing for you. In this case, you know your infrastructure costs are. You have a pro rata share. Like he said, it's congruent. Everything's in the same area, and everybody's not going to be yelling at each other unless you're yelling at Kroger for having trucks on your street, or Amazon or whoever, because it happens all the time. But at least the uses are the same. You're not having houses and apartments next to industrial buildings. So from that standpoint, it's been great.
Cory, Jean is fairly isolated. It's surrounded by BLM land. It's adjacent to the Jean Airport and the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport, which many of you probably know, abbreviated as SNSA. That their whole planned area. Who have been the key players in all of this, and how has politics come into play?
Good question. I think the key players are kind of the county you would expect. So we've been working through that. We've been working with the Las Vegas Valley Water District. So when we first looked at the property, of course, we wondered where the water was coming from and how we could serve all those properties, and called the water district, and they said, nope, there's no water. Okay, is there a waiting list? Nope, there's no waiting list. It's all appropriated in that basin, all the groundwater. But then we got into the deal more and found out that the casino and the properties had had several hundred acre feet that were tied to those properties. So that's where the water came from. So the water district has been key there, and we're going to have some improvements that we'll do for them in terms of backup wells and things like that to ensure the long-term service to the area. So that's been a big one. And then just working with the county and getting used to the county process. We're spoiled in Reno, where, especially in the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, where we closed on 3 parcels that we merged last March, and our roof structure was finished 3 weeks ago, and we closed in Jean at the same time last March, and we still haven't been able to move any dirt yet. So we're a little spoiled there, but one of the challenges that we've had is we're lucky enough to have 27 square miles that drain to Jean, and so we've been modeling that entire watershed to handle all the stormwater flows from that. So that's been a task. And then we also have NDOT. We've got the communities of Good Springs and Sandy Valley that we're working with because there's concerns about traffic on Good Springs Road there. So just kind of working through that, but it's been a pretty smooth process.
Excellent. So I just want to take a moment, a quick reminder that we do have a Q&A session at 9 o'clock, so please jot down those notes. Where's Dan at? Dan, can you stand? He's at the back of the room there. So if you have questions, please do feel free to run back and give Dan your questions. I know Jalen's over there in the far corner as well, waving his hand. We'd love to hear your questions at the end of the program. So I want to switch gears here, and let's discuss product type. It seems to me that we're increasingly seeing this demand for these large, I call them bombers, right? 1 million square foot build-to-suit product, logistics type facilities. Spec doesn't seem to be as prominent at the moment, and in fact, some developers are actively pivoting away from their spec programs. Why is this?
Money.
Right.
It's, I've been doing this since 1989. 100%, this is the best market we've been in for the last 2 years, until July, August of last year. But given my time in the business, I knew it. So, you have to be, like in 2008, I knew we were going to a problem. After a while, I go, this is not going to end well, and of course, it did not end well. But in I'll try to be brief so I don't dominate, but in 2020, March, remember we all shut down. By June, I was back on a plane because the industrial market exploded. And especially that e-commerce company I told you about, they said they were running at peak capacity. We end up delivering over the next 2 years, 45, 50 buildings for them across North America. It was amazing. And so from my experience in COVID was way different than most people. And I felt blessed, but I also felt sorry for people who were losing their jobs and the illnesses, all the things that were going on with that period of time. But at the same token, it spawned the greatest industrial boom I've ever seen. And cap rates just dove down to nothing. I closed on 2 deals last year at 3.25. I just felt blessed, and I just like, my God, this is not supposed to happen this way. Of course, the pendulum tends to swing, and it has swung. Capital is running for the hills. Banks are failing again. It reminds you of 2008, and everybody's having PTSD. I cover my clock every night. I turn it around. I've done that for 14 years. I don't look at the clock because I know when I wake up, I'm not going back to sleep. So I'm not having that same problem. I'm not financially in the same position I was 14 years ago. But as a country, it should worry us what's going on right now. Where interest rate hikes have a huge detrimental effect on our business. We lived and died by cap rate compression. Yields went like this, cap rates went like that. As long as those two stayed apart, we were fine. And it did. Interest rates, we had 13 years of basically zero interest rates. It's not sustainable. It's asinine. Anybody's been on Earth long enough knows that's not a sustainable model. And sure enough, the rates went up. SVB, if you read about what happened at that bank, they bought long-term treasuries at 1%. Mark-to-market killed the bank. Stupid. But that's another story. But anyway, capital right now is the reason why we're not building. And I think last year, I guessed, of the pipeline, 40% would come off the top. I think now 80% is going to come off. And you look in the history books 10 years from now and go, it was a 1% market with rising rates. What are you guys doing? Nobody has money. So for us, we have to put more money in the deal. capitalists going to the sidelines, and we're financially in a position where we can wait it out and maybe buy some deals, but it's not going to be good for a while.
But it was the perfect storm also, I mean, the good storm, because construction costs were also flat. And you didn't see a whole lot of increase there. So what Doug was talking about, it was the greatest, I mean, it was the best of times. It was the best of times. I mean, it was like nothing we'd ever seen before.
I'm quitting right now.
So right. So it was build,
All right.
build. Cap rates lower. Yeah, interest rates low, so your construction loans were low. It just was the perfect time, and we took advantage of it. And going back to a little bit of what you were talking about, Mariana, from the land perspective and the scarcity and land pricing, really from a variable perspective, that's about, all our construction costs are about the same, all our soft costs are about the same. Really where we make money is on the buy, on the land. And so, but when people say, okay, your buy didn't comp out, you paid too much or whatever it was. Well, maybe from a raw land perspective, you got to look at everything these days from a improved land perspective and understanding the difference. I mean, throw comps out the window because no two parcels of land are the same shape, same yield, infrastructure costs that are related to getting that first building started. So when people say, well, we bought that for $3 a foot and you're in at 8, yeah, well, fully improved, I'm in at 9 and you're at 15. So I love Doug's comment. That's Carl Panattoni, it's the best guesser is the best developer. Certainly they don't teach that class at Harvard. I think they did at ASU, where I went to school. I love that. Sometimes it's better lucky than good. And when you've got the capital behind you and the gray hair, the experience, to understand, and okay, where's the puck going to be? Where can we create value? It's on the front end, really trying to capture it during construction and hoping for interest rate changes and those types of things. That's when you get in trouble. And people were jumping in, pretty much blindly just to get into this industrial craze. And those with some more discipline and kind of understanding what that improved land cost really was, that's back to fundamental real estate, and that's where people make money still in a market. Doug's right, it's about the money now, and these are challenging times. But a lot of us have put ourselves in positions, I think, with these 3 plays that we're talking about today. The market's still at 1.5% last time I checked from a vacancy perspective. So for guys like when we came to this market 7 years ago and it was 5, down in Phoenix it was 12% vacancy. We were like, go, 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 go. We're still at 1.5 here. Activity's still really good. So we're bullish. We just got to be a little bit more careful than it was craziness, whatever, a year ago, right?
They said it all. Yeah, I mean, we're still looking big box spec, so we'll start with 455,000 square foot where the old Nevada Landing site was, if anyone's familiar with that, and then 1 million square feet across the street, or across the 15. So,
But the canary in the coal mine is tenant activity.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
If that goes down, then all bets are off.
Yeah. Then I might be manning the casino. We'll see. Or living in it. We'll see.
So the types of tenants you're seeing, what types of tenants? And you don't have to say companies, but what are we seeing? More manufacturing, more robotics? What are you seeing coming to Nevada?
Good question. I mean, I think it's largely e-commerce still. So we're looking at, we've got some interest from a couple different tenants, all e-commerce. I think they like that play and like the market. I mean, look, I think as Nevadans, a lot of times we bash on California, but 1% leakage from the 4th largest economy in the world is not a bad thing for Nevada. So even as we always say Gavin Newsom's the best realtor in Nevada, so if I think we'll continue to absorb some of that leakage from Southern California and those distributors.
Our sub's across the board, frankly. So I mean, we have a pretty substantial border policy, our border plan, rather. We have 100 acres we bought in El Paso to take advantage of nearshoring and onshoring. COVID did change the way we manufacture in this country. It's going to be a lot more in Mexico. both Asia, Europe, United States investment in Mexico. So I see that as a huge driver of industrial real estate along the border states. Yuma, Laredo, McAllen, Texas, El Paso are going to be benefits of it. It's amazing what goes across that border every day, other than political issues. But I think for me, you see manufacturing from California because we have one tenant in Henderson that they said that California didn't want them anymore. It's sad to say, but that's true. I mean, I'm native to California, and I lived there for a long time, and I moved out of there for various reasons, but they continue not to make it fun to do business in California. We're going to be the recipients of it. But there's a reason why there's 40 million people, and Keith and I both have homes there, because it's a beautiful state, other than this politics right now, but and the taxation policies and all the other stuff you get with it. But I think it's across the board. 3PLs especially are a big deal right now.
Right. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I was going to add.
Sorry.
We're saying, no, that's fine. A lot of 3PL activity actually in Phoenix, because we all do regional. We're seeing a lot of manufacturing. And that's kind of the first time in Phoenix that we've seen that. And a lot of that is probably attributed to the expansion of the Intel plant and the TSMC. So we're seeing an influx of offshore, talent, investment going into chip manufacturing down in Arizona. And so that's positive. They looked at California and said, no thanks. So we're seeing increased manufacturing users that we hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah, and that kind of segues to the next question I have here is, you all have great experience outside of the Southern Nevada submarket as well. How do you have any notable contrasts relative to the other markets that you're involved in? Or what are those notable contrasts?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that we're spoiled with the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. I'm not suggesting that that's necessarily what every jurisdiction needs to do, but building permits and grading permits in 2 weeks and building permits in 6 or 8 weeks is not a bad thing. So I think that's a contrast for us. But I don't know. Do you guys have any other big contrasts?
I mean, certainly ease of development is almost every measure of what makes an area more attractive than others. And I think Reno in the last few years has become much more difficult to build in. And I think a lot of it's fatigue. I think people just are, I'm done. I don't want any more warehouse in my neighborhood. And the council members reflect that. Luckily, as a resident, and we're been there for 20-some years, we have relationships, and we're trying to be good, good stewards of the area. But I think it's a lot of times if it's easy to develop there, that means there's not a lot of development going on. And back in the early days of Amazon, like 3 years ago during the pandemic, people were begging Amazon to come in. And now it's like, not so much. So it's ease of development is probably the biggest factor I see from place to place. If they really want you there, it's so much easier. But frankly, it's because there's not a lot of demand. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, makes sense. So I know we're coming up on our Q&A session here shortly. I have one final question for you all. What are you most proud of? This is not time to be modest now. What are you most proud of that set your deal apart?
That's really easy for me. I think I mentioned the Northgate distribution center that we did back starting in 2015. I think the first building was delivered at the end of 16, and it was the infrastructure that we put in. The day that we turned on the fire hydrant, from having to take water, sewer, and electricity, electricity was 3 different substations. It was water a mile, sewer a mile and a half. Guy Martin's back there nodding his head saying, yeah. But it wasn't really when we signed our first Amazon deal. It was the day we turned on the fire hydrant and water came out. And that sounds kind of corny, and it's like, what is this guy talking about? When you sell those assets, you monetize and everything's great. No, it's the ability to get these things going. That's the challenge. And that's the challenge in the Southwest. We see it in Phoenix. We see it here in Nevada. Those are the kind of bellwether events that, hey, turning on a fire hydrant was the highlight of your career. I guess we go back to my ASU education, but that is something that when you look and you have the commitment, you say, hey, I'm committed to spend whatever it was, year and a half to get that infrastructure in, because I believe in this market so much, in the longevity of the market. We're not here just to, do one and then leave. It's, hey, we're here to stay, and this is something that we want to make a big investment to. Because Doug said it, how much reimbursement have we gotten on the infrastructure that we put in? 0. So you're really investing in the long-term, of the municipality. And I think that's why they process the permits and things so quickly, is because they see your investment in those types of things. But that was the highlight, is the working with the teams, the engineers, the city, all our consultants to get that finished so that we could start building buildings.
Doug, how about you?
I think for me, we built millions of feet in the valley, been here a long time, but it had to be Wes Henderson. I think that was kind of not a swan song because I'm not dead yet, but it was my chance to kind of pioneer an area, and it took me a while to get my arms around it. Like, okay, I remember going to Colliers and meeting with Terry Manley and Dan and his team and kind of, checking the market. And I talked to the brokers, and said, what do you think? And they all had the same opinion. It makes sense. But again, having that chance to kind of master plan the area, did not buy enough land. We paid $425 a foot. Should have bought more. Right. And Dan, I remember Dan told me, oh, this could be $12 in 2 years. And you are foolish.
And it was 20, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you undershot it. But same token, that one was tremendously successful. Chris Abbott did a great job. It was one of those things where we kind of went from one to another. And in an ideal world, you can kind of do that. You don't have to buy all that land at once because the carry will kill you. And that was just such a cool thing to see. And I wish there was more down there, but there's not. So,
Cory.
Proudest moment in Jean, Nevada. We had 355 title exceptions on the title report, so that was fun to work through. I would guess closing was talking someone into buying this with us was a good one. Probably walking our wives into the vacant casino and seeing the looks on their faces when we said, "Honey, I bought you a casino." That was pretty good.
Were you in the movies?
What's that? No, we're not in any of the movies, and they canceled that Netflix movie we filmed too. But that's all right. I was going to be a zombie in it, but no. I think we're just excited that we were able to get it over the finish line, and that other people saw the vision. I know a lot of people in here probably still think we're pretty crazy, and sometimes we do too. But I think folks have kind of come around and said, you know what, that seems like it might be something that could work, and our capital partners felt so too. So that was a proud moment for us.
So the real question is, are we all invited for the demo party?
Oh yeah, it's going to be a good one. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to pass it off to Dan now. It looks like we have lots of questions. Dan, why don't you kick it off?
Thank you, Mariana. You know you put together a good land panel, Mariana, when Kay Rohani's in the audience looking for information. There was a lot of questions on Jean. Keith, you mentioned your land price, actually, which you purchased and put into it. Could the other two gentlemen say what they purchased, or at least what they think the infrastructure and the final price, land price, will be that you're placing on your properties?
No.
Check, please.
Next, yeah, check.
I can't do it.
Can't do it. Yeah.
There's no mic to drop.
Yeah. No, all in with the buying the casino, we were just over $7 a foot. So that's kind of where we're at. We have some offsites, but like I said, there's an existing 600,000 gallon wastewater treatment plant that's already there and operational. The water lines are in, the tanks are in. We have 2 substations. So hopefully that's we'll be a little more. We'll be a little above that, but hopefully that's where we'll be.
So a couple of questions on Jean were the rail state, or is there going to be a rail station, the old jail? Are you going to do any other uses besides industrial?
We have water to do some assembly, not enough to really go for big manufacturing, but we have some interest from some folks out of Southern California in the assembly side of things. So that's a use. The rail, we do have the Union Pacific Railroad there. There's a 20-acre parcel that Union Pacific has where they have some sitage in that we could do some transloading on. And then one of the other landowners out there, Letitia or Berry Global, has a tract there as well that they use for their industrial product. So there may be some opportunity to leverage that.
And outside of Doug, what kind of lease rates did you underwrite when you were going into this?
$1 a foot? No, no. We're at high 70s right now.
Keith?
So my comp isn't out there on SC Logistics. I'm going to go the Doug route. I'm kind of enjoying that part. No, you know, your market's changing. What we were quoting probably 3 months ago is probably 10 cents light, right? So from an underwriting perspective, it doesn't matter because we're already launched. So we're going to the market, and the market is responding nicely from a lease rate perspective. Now, cap rates, not so much. So we don't know what the end looks like if we want to turn around and sell it. But certainly from a lease rate perspective, we're in a much better spot than we were when we bought the land a year and a half ago, and certainly much better than we were a year ago when we, you know, well, I guess 7 months ago when we started construction.
Doug, a lot of people here liked your Carlism of guessing, a lot of the developers. Do you have any Dougisms, is the question.
I don't have original thought in my head. I think, honestly, I think a lot of it is, and I think it's even on the internet, there's like 10 things, and I kind of memorized all things, and Carl as my mentor, of course, and he's 75, still active in the business, not as much as he was, but I think, I mean, I guess my only one that I can think of right now is, and I said this at, I don't say this for sympathy, I lost my dad about a month ago, so we had a service for him on Sunday, and one of the things I kind of drew upon is what he influenced my life, and one of them was, trust me to be honest, and trust me to be competent. I'm going to do my job, and I'm not going to screw you. It's basically what I'm going to say. So if you're honest and not competent, it doesn't do any good, and the other way around doesn't do any good. So that's when I kind of say the most when I meet somebody is, I'm going to treat you right, and I'm going to do the job you've hired me to do, and then I pull the other Carlism is no dead bodies. Afterwards, there can't be anything, you can't have any gum on your shoes. That's a Dougism right there. I say that all the time. But it's like he wants to make sure he sells a project, and he doesn't find out 6 months later you screwed something up and you didn't tell him. That's the worst thing, and my folks know the same thing. No dead bodies. I don't want to hear about something 6 months from now. You deal with it right now. And if it's not pleasant, just get it on the table.
It's good stuff, Doug.
Great stuff.
There's a couple general questions about tenant demand. You've touched it in each of your different ways, but how is this market hurting the pipeline of tenant demand? You said 80% of development projects, but can you guys touch on what you see tenants doing?
Sure. It's all relative, right? So I would say we have leasing meetings every 2 weeks on all our projects in Phoenix, here in Vegas, stuff that we've got in Colorado. So I would tell you from our leasing sheets of real prospects that by far our Southern Nevada calls are so much better than they are and Phoenix is probably a pretty close second. So a lot of these days, 3/4 of our deal sheet, it's unknown. Project Astra, Project Beta, Project Zulu. So you don't really know who those companies are, and a lot of them are multi-market searches. So we'll see the same million-footer in Phoenix that we see here in Vegas, and kind of watching some of that activity, but it's still activity. We do compete with the Phoenix market here in Southern Nevada, and I think we compete favorably just because we can catch a whole lot more of the population in a 2-day drive for truckers than you can at Maricopa County. But at the end of the day, I mean, real tenant activity versus just the voracious tenant activity that was probably 12 and certainly 24 months ago. I don't think it's at that pace, but certainly our deal sheet's full. We got 2 or 3 pages here in Las Vegas. We've got a page and a half in Phoenix. A Denver project that we're working on is half a page. So we like the activity still. It's just, it's not the certainty without Amazon being out there. They were 25% of the market 3 years ago. I'm not sure what that's general, but with them on the sideline, it's a little bit of a different game, and it's just not like it was 2 or 3 years ago, but certainly good activity. And we're building spec. We've got one lease. We've got another 800 that we're going to be kicking off here in 2 months. So we're still bullish on the market because of that activity. So sorry, that was a 20-minute answer to a
Great answer.
yes or no.
You want me to answer too?
Yeah, you can answer anywhere around the valley, Doug. You know everything, so.
Well, I think in general it's actually pretty good. I echo what Keith is saying. I think the activity here in Southern California is softening. And that, whether it's a harbinger thing to come here, I don't know. But I think some of it is, if you're making a long-term commitment, especially as manufacturing, you're probably thinking twice about staying in California anyway. So maybe that's forcing these folks to make a different decision. Reno, we've got 2 spec buildings going on the way there. One has a pre-lease on it. The other one has a partial pre-lease on it. Because the actual buildings themselves, the number of buildings is pretty small, especially in Reno. And then I have 350 acres in North Valleys to develop in the next couple of years. But I'm not at all upset about the tenant activity. It's not the same as it was, a year ago or 2 years ago. But it's almost the first thing I ask every tenant or every broker, whether it's Dan's team or Kevin's team. It's like, all right, what are you guys seeing? And we have a call this morning with Kevin's team, and the way that they lay out the activity it's pretty strong. Not great, like great, but it's strong, which that's all we look for.
The same. Yeah, I have nothing to add. We're seeing the same thing.
Tina Quigley wants high-paying manufacturing jobs, and she's blaming it all on you guys.
What was the first?
Sorry, Tina.
Tina at LVG.
Tina Quigley.
Yeah.
Yes, Tina.
Ah, there she is.
Just to warehousing, which I also am worried about goes to, eventually goes more towards autonomous and robotics and less employee-based. Thoughts?
I think it's a multi-layered answer. We as consumers want low-price product, right? If you order from Amazon, it's more of a convenience factor. It may not be the low price, but you want that on your. You don't want to go to the store or whatever it is, and especially if you're ordering for somebody else and you don't want to have to worry about shipping it. So it's a convenience issue, not just an economic issue. And I'm not a big fan of Walmart just because of, I don't care for their stores. It's just me personally. I'm more of a Target person because it's cleaner, low ways laid out. But Walmart's whole thing is about low price, right? So if you have a low skill, low wage job in a warehouse, it's a function of low price to the consumer. So on one hand, it costs the community, but it also keeps cost of living down to some degree where you're not paying the higher prices. We as landlords like sticky tenants. Sticky tenants mean they don't leave. So that would be a manufacturer or somebody of that degree. So I think the education level and skill of our community, both Reno and Las Vegas, it also has to do with the welcomeness of our community to that type of job. Obviously with things that they go through in California, because I've built there, I know exactly what I'm talking about. They don't make you feel like they want you there. And it's just so many hoops and so many people in your business all the time. You get visits from all kinds of agencies you've never heard of, and so they don't feel like they're appreciated. So I think it's a matter of, we don't have enough time to even address this, but the education level, the willingness of the community to accept them, and the continuing lack of support from California will only lead to more jobs like that here. And we have several in our portfolio. We have manufacturers in Reno that came in that project that Keith was talking about. Probably a third of the tenants, Mary's Gone Crackers makes crackers. That's the manufacturing. It's a bakery, but they actually produce the crackers. So it's a different changing environment for us. It's not the same buildings we used to build. That's for sure. They're not 5 people in a warehouse working on forklifts. Much more complicated.
Well, and those kind of jobs too, just to kind of piggyback on what Doug's saying, it's not your grandfather's warehouse is not today's warehouse. The logistics just inside the conveying systems and all the engineering that takes place inside those warehouses, it's not just some guy tooling around on a forklift. These are very sophisticated and they're little cities and they need operations to sustain. So there's a lot of high paying jobs within those warehouses that weren't there years ago. So it's, granted, there's still the minimum wage ones, but I would say today's warehousing is You spend a little bit more time inside these, it's a pretty sophisticated, especially for West and East Coast distribution centers. You get a lot of them here in Southern Nevada. That's sophisticated logistics, and those are high-paying jobs because they're looking to get it to the customer as fast as they can.
I'm going to jump in here, Dan, really quick because we're right on time. But really quick, I just want to extend, I know Reed's going to come up to close out. I want to extend a big thank you to our panelists, Cory, Doug, and Keith, and Schnitzer Properties for being the program sponsor. The programs committee, Dan, our valiant chairman, and the programs committee, thank you. John and Katrina for putting this amazing, all the logistics of this program together. And then I want to extend a very special recognition to Jen Levine, Mike Showit,
Hey, Jen.
Sean Zaher, Dan, and Reed, who were really instrumental in helping me personally prepare for this. So thank you all. Reed?
I think Mariana pretty much covered it, but Keith, Doug, Cory, Mariana, amazing job. I think we're all a little bit smarter thanks to you guys. And that closes out today's breakfast. See everyone next month.